let me ask you something real quick. Have you ever noticed, how the moment that you want to do better, like actually better, things get harder? Not just busy, not just stressful, but like resistance shows up. The Bible actually talks about that, and it doesn't sugarcoat it. In Ephesians chapter 6, we hear from Paul, and he says something that I've been leaning in on a lot recently. And honestly, the first time I ever heard it, it completely changed life for me. And it's that we do not wrestle against flesh and blood. That sentence alone, it changes everything. Because if you think about it, that means that the tension you feel, the exhaustion, the weight that you carry that you can't really explain, it's not just life being hard. Paul writes this while he's in prison, literally chained to a Roman soldier. So what's he do? He looks at the soldier's armor and says, that's how a believer survives. Sounds kind of weird. Like, what's he talking about? Here's what he's talking about. He breaks down everything, and he uses what's right in front of him to get a message. He starts with the soldier's belt. He calls it the belt of truth. Now, that might sound basic, but the belt, it held all of that soldier's armor together. Without it, nothing else would have worked. In truth, it's the same thing in our lives. I don't mean like facts. I mean the truth about who God is and the truth about who you are. Because once you start believing lies, like lies about your worth or your position or your past, everything else starts to fall apart. Most battles are won or lost right there. Next, he talks about, the breastplate of righteousness. Just as it sounds, that protects your heart. Righteousness, it's not about being perfect. It's about alignment. When we live outside of God's design, it exposes the heart. When we live in obedience, it guards it. A lot of pain that people carry, it's heart damage from living unprotected. Then Paul goes on to talk about the shoes, the readiness that comes from peace. Roman soldiers, the shoes that they wore, they had spikes on them, so that way they wouldn't slip in battle. You think about that. Shoes of peace. Peace gives you footing, okay? Not comfort, not avoidance. Peace that says, no matter what happens, I'm still standing. And then comes the shield of faith. The Bible calls them flaming arrows. Thoughts that hit you out of nowhere, like doubt or fear or shame. You're not good enough. God's not listening. You might as well give up. This isn't changing. Now, faith doesn't stop the arrows from coming, but it stops them from getting inside of you. Next, you've got your helmet. That's called the helmet of salvation. That's the mind of the battlefield. Salvation isn't just about heaven someday. It's about your identity right now, who you are. You're not your past. You're not your worst mistake. You're not what somebody did to you. When your mind is protected, everything else follows. Then you've got your sword of spirit, the word of God. This is the only offensive weapon. Jesus didn't argue with temptation. He didn't explain himself. He said, "It is written." You can't use a sword that you never pick up. And look, here's the part that people miss. Paul ends it. He ends all of it with a prayer, because armor sitting on the floor doesn't help anyone. Prayer is how you put it on every single day. I don't say any of this like I've got it figured out. I say it because I've lived unprotected, and I've felt the difference when I didn't. The armor of God, it isn't religious language. It's honestly survival. So, tomorrow morning, before the noise, before the stress, make sure you get dressed.